Hey, what's happening? Welcome in Monday Live. My name is Jason Priester of allclemsontigers.com, part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform, covering all things Clemson Tigers. Appreciate you tuning in as we make the move over exclusively to YouTube. Of course, as usual, the dog has to chime in. She's got to get her screen time too. But that's neither here nor there. Appreciate y'all tuning in. For all you baseball fans, Clemson's coming off a big sweep of Louisville. Only the fifth time Louisville has ever been swept since they joined the ACC. Clemson is the only team to pull off that feat twice, the second time being this weekend. Got very good quality starts from Austin Gordon, Ethan Darden, and Caden Grice. Grice would probably be the first to tell you he probably didn't have his best stuff yesterday. If you'd have told me in the second or the third inning of that game that he was going to go more than 6 innings, I probably wouldn't have believed it. Louisville had their leadoff runner reach base in each of the first 4 innings, but he gets out of it, allowing just 1 run over those first 4 innings, if I'm not mistaken. Allowed 3 total, only 2 of them were earned. A career high 11 strikeouts. He continues to just keep getting it done on the mound. Again, Austin Gordon might have been hit. You know what? It might have been all 3 of those guys' best starts of the year. Probably Darden's best start since he's been in the rotation. Gordon held the Cardinals to just 1 hit. Tough luck not picking up a win there, but it is what it is. That's how baseball is. Sometimes he's still only got 1 win on the season. It's hard to believe. He's had some tough luck losses. But the pitching is really starting to come together. Clemson baseball put up this graphic today that really caught my attention. I knew the pitching had turned around. I didn't know exactly how good it had been. In the last 44 innings pitched, Clemson pitchers have allowed 23 hits. They have a whip of 0.86. 0.86. That's walks and hits allowed per inning. That is minuscule. And they have a 2.66 ERA. That is pretty impressive, especially for a bullpen that was known more for giving up leads than protecting them early in the season. Eric Bakich and his coaching staff have finally figured out the right roles for those guys. And as Zach right here says, they have now got the pitching. It looks like they have got the pitching now to go along with what has been a team that's been pretty solid at the plate for most of the season. Not very good at coming up with the clutch hits this weekend. Struggled with runners in scoring position. Kind of been an uncharacteristic performance of this team when you look at what they've done over the past month or so. They've been so good at getting those clutch hits. Still found other ways to win. Manufactured some runs. We saw Caden Grice lay down a bunt. How often do you see Caden Grice bunt? It's probably the first time he's ever bunted in his career. Not going to see him asked to do that. And it was a perfect bunt. He beat it out, got on base. That coaching staff is just pushing a lot of the right buttons right now. Yes, they run into a lot of outs on the bases. Eric Bakich talked a little bit about this after the Game 2 win, talking about how they're going to live by the sword, die by the sword. He said they're playing on the edge. They're playing with the edge, right on the edge, and he thinks that's what they need to do to be at their best. I think they ran into 3 outs on the bases Friday in 1 game alone, 2 of those at home plate. It's something he said 3 is probably too many, but he can live with those kind of mistakes as long as they are aggressive mistakes and not just, dumb base running mistakes. Probably for some old school baseball fans, it's probably aggravating to watch sometimes. Conventional wisdom says you're not supposed to run into outs that way. You're not supposed to make the third and final out at home plate, yada, yada, yada. This coaching staff obviously does not believe in that. And I believe the positives have far outweighed the negatives when it comes to those kind of things. because this team is absolutely rolling. They're 13th into RPI. Another big one coming up Wednesday night. They go to Coastal. Coastal's 11th into RPI. Now that Clemson has pulled off this sweep, they are no doubt in the discussion to host now. Go to Coastal, beat them, and if you can take care of business these next 2 weekends on the road at Virginia Tech, back home against North Carolina, you are quite possibly putting yourself in the discussion to be a national seed. You are starting to flirt with 40 wins in the regular season, maybe push across that 40-win mark in the ACC tournament. So still a lot to play for this team. Back, it's another thing he talked about over the weekend was that they were not going to pay attention to where they are in the standings. They were just going to keep their heads down and keep plugging along. You know, the more success you experience, the harder that gets to do. So we'll see how it plays out over the rest of the season. Getting a good feeling about the ACC tournament now. A lot to play for here, too, because you want to be in those top 4 seeds. You know, with the pod system that the ACC uses, which is the dumbest thing ever. They're the only Power 5 conference that uses that thing. Everybody else does a double elimination tournament. I don't know why the ACC's got to be different. It is what it is. But you want to be one of those top 4 seeds. You know, if you are the top seed in your pod, you have a distinct advantage over the other 2 teams that are in the pod with you. If you are the 2nd or 3rd seed in that pod and you go 1-1, you are in real danger of not moving on. If you're the top seed, you go 1-1, you're probably moving on. About the only way. I mean, it's unless another team goes 2-0. But if everybody finishes 1-1, you're moving on. You've got the tiebreaker. About the only way you don't move on is if you go 0-2. You have a distinct advantage over everybody else. The way this team's playing, though, I think they're absolutely capable of making a run in the ACC tournament. They have, they'd have to fall off a cliff. I'm not. They might. I'd have to look at the standings to see exactly because everybody's so bunched together there. But they'd have to fall off a cliff over these last 2 weeks to not get into that. Now they're playing for the 3rd, 4th seed. I think they're even got a possibility of maybe sliding into that 2 seed. Nobody's catching Wake Forest, but definitely a possibility to get up into those top 4 teams in the ACC. Yeah. Yeah, that patience is paying off. The last 2 weekends Clemson has been at home, there has been a different vibe at the ballpark. A vibe. It's a feeling of, I would term it as excitement. A feeling that I have not felt at Doug Kingsmore probably since going back to before COVID. There is a level of excitement. There is a level of energy inside the stadium, especially this weekend. Man, there was energy inside Doug Kingsmore. Those crowds were electric. They weren't sold out. They were about, I think, 4,200 on hand Saturday and Sunday. But the people that were there provided a fantastic baseball atmosphere. They were into the games. They were lively, especially Saturday when there were some questionable calls. And I think it was Saturday when they had the controversial overturn of the out at home plate. But yeah, the patience is paying off. Absolutely. Took them a little while to find to slide each pitcher into the role that fits him best. But I think they figured that stuff out now. Let's use Rob Hughes as an example. He has been a big part of this bullpen over the past 3 or 4 weeks. He's a guy we didn't see much of at all over the first 5 or 6 weeks. I think he had 1 appearance. So when you get those things figured out and you figure out what roles suit each guy the best, it gives you a better opportunity for success. And that's kind of what we're seeing with this team now, that they've got the pitching to go with the hitting, like Zach touched on a minute ago. Off to Coastal Wednesday, Virginia Tech on the road. And this is a team that is 10-5 on the road this season. I think I said it last week. I think this team plays well on the road. I don't know. They've kind of taken on one of those road dog mentalities. I don't know if it's maybe they leave some of the distractions at home. It's not to say they play bad at home, because they don't. They've been playing well at home too. I just think they play a little bit better on the road, maybe a little bit more freely. So we'll see what happens up in Blacksburg this weekend. Definitely want to go up there and win that series, because Virginia Tech, they're fighting for their ACC lives right now, so a lot on the line for those guys too. First things first, Coastal in Conway on Wednesday night, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. 2 top 15 RPI teams, duking it out. That one should be fun. We'll see who the staff decides to roll out there and start Wednesday night. Jackson Lindley got to start in the last midweek game. I lean towards thinking he would probably get to start again Wednesday night. But if not, you got some options. Nick Hoffman's a guy you could go with. He's pitched fairly well his last few times out. Heck, even Ty Olenchuk's been pretty good out of that bullpen of late. If you got stretched and really needed somebody, he's a guy that can give you some innings. We'll see who they go with. I tend to think it's going to be Jackson Lindley. How about Brad Brownell? He's continuing to kill it in the transfer portal. Picked up another big one yesterday with Joe Girard, former Syracuse guard. This feels a big need for this Clemson team. They needed a guy. They needed to find a guy in the portal who could come in and shoot the ball, hit some shots from beyond the arc, and that is what Girard gives you. About the only negative thing that I've heard said about him, people question his defense. Kid's been playing at Syracuse the last 4 years. They play his zone. Not sure if we've really seen how good his defense is. We'll find out how good it is in playing for Brad Brownell, because we know how defensive minded he is. But this is a big pickup for Clemson. They needed a guy who could come in and replace some of the production they lose with Hunter Tyson. I know you think of him as a more of a big man than a guard, but he was one of your big 3-point shooters. You lost Brevin Galloway, another one of your big shooters. You need somebody to come in here and fill that void that they leave. And I think that Girard is that guy. He is an established guard in this league. He's proved that he can play at a high level. And I think he is absolutely something that Brad Brownell's team needed at this point in time. Yeah, I think a lot of Clemson fans would like to see UCF again, especially after that little video surface of them running down the hill. That didn't sit well with a lot of people. And I get it. I understand why. That's the day and age we live in. I tend to look at it this way. If you don't want to get trash talked, you don't want to get trolled online, don't let somebody come into your house and sweep you. But more to your point, yeah, it would be fun to see those two matched up again somewhere, in a regional somewhere. I don't even know if UCF is in the discussion to make a regional, to be quite honest. Are they even that good this year? I thought they were at the time, but I know they went on a little losing skid there. They had some allegations there by a former player, some cheating allegations come out a few weeks ago, and kind of got on a little losing streak, and I haven't really kept up with them since then. But, yeah, that would be fun, because I'm pretty sure that didn't sit well with the guys in that dugout either. That there was some – I remember some chippiness in that series. UCF's first base coach was kind of jawing with some of the Clemson players in the dugout at one point in one of those games. So, yeah, that would be fun to watch. You got to prepare as if he may leave. PJ Hall, PJ Hall's testing the draft waters. We all know that. I tend to think it's far more likely he returns than not. But if he goes up there and does well, and they say, "Hey, man, you might be a first round pick," then yeah, you got to prepare for his as if he's leaving. But I do think that they are probably counting on him to be back. The kid they took from UNC Greensboro, they brought him in to be a backup. Jack Clark, he kind of comes in. He's probably a depth guy. Not sure he'll be a starter. They'll depend on him, but not sure he's going to be one of the starting five. If PJ Hall were to decide to go pro, then the whole complexion of this team changes in my eyes. I mean, I don't care what you do in the portal; it's hard to replace that. And as far as Hall being the guy at the five, I think he is that, like it or not. Maybe not what he's best suited for. He's not. He gets out physical at times by some of the bigger bodied guys he plays against, but I think that's what he is. If we're getting down to the thick of it, he typically you're a four, but I mean at Clemson he's had to play the role of the five more often than not in my eyes. But I would be very surprised if PJ's not back next year. I mean, I find it. I think he has more. I think he has a lot to gain by coming back because I don't see him as a first round pick in the next NBA draft, and I haven't seen anybody that thinks that way. And basketball is a lot different than football. If you're not a first round pick, a surefire first round pick, you probably need to come back because he doesn't strike me as one of those guys that hates school and is just ready to leave. He loves it at Clemson. You can tell by the way he talks about the school. I mean, I fully expect he'll be back, barring him going up there and killing it and really improving his draft stock. Because if you're told you're a first round pick, you got to go, especially if you're a guy like PJ who's already dealt with some injuries and seen how those kind of things can set you back. Got some new visitors to add to the official visit list since last time we spoke. Cam Coleman has put it out there that he's coming. Let's see who else. KJ Bolden's coming. All guys I expected to come all along, but now we know for sure they're coming. I found out that linebacker Aaron Childs is coming. I had heard he was coming, but I hadn't confirmed it. If Hall comes back, I won't get my hopes up, but I think they make the NCAA tournament. If PJ Hall comes back, it's got to be an NCAA tournament team, right? I mean, I know nobody expected Clemson to make the tournament this year. They were picked to finish 11th in the league. But next year, PJ Hall comes back. You look at these additions Brownell's added in the portal. This has got to be a tournament team. I think the expectation every year should be the tournament. I know Clemson doesn't have that kind of history, but I don't see why they can't compete for tournament spots year in and year out, especially now in the portal era, where you can go out and basically rebuild your roster in a few weeks. Well, we'll see how it plays out, but yeah, this is a team that should no doubt make the tournament next year. Yeah, Cam Coleman. Really hope he's eventually the next in line from Phoenix City. Clemson has had a lot of success recruiting guys out of Central there in Phoenix City. Justin Ross, E.J. Williams, Ray Thornton came from there. Going to be hard. It's going to be hard to pluck him out of there. Auburn is. I would probably consider Auburn the front runner. You got to get him in here that first weekend and knock it out of the park, because it sounds like his recruitment is going to extend well into the fall, and he's going to take probably officials to Auburn, Florida State after the season starts. It's going to take one to Clemson in June, one to LSU in June. And as we all know, the number at receiver is 2. Let's say Clemson gets 2 of those other guys on board. Say you also, in a perfect world, land Mike Matthews, who you're recruiting as an athlete, but he wants to play receiver. Do you still take Cam Coleman? As the 3rd or 4th receiver, however you're looking at it? I don't know. Dabo can be tight on those numbers sometimes. That would be an interesting scenario to see how it plays out. I don't see how you tell a kid like Cam Coleman no, though. If he wants to come, you got to let him come. I don't care if he's pushing it to signing day. You got to wait on that guy, man. He is that talented. He's that good. He's a 5-star by at least one of the services. He is an extremely talented receiver. And let's face it, while I like the makeup of the receiver room right now, it's still kind of going through a little bit of a remodel, so to speak, or being revamped, retooled, however you want to call it. Still needs some more talent infused into there. And Clemson needs to hit on a couple of these guys in this cycle, make no mistake. Any new O-linemen coming on the official visit weekend? Fletcher Westfall, Casey Poe, Michael Inouye. I know those 3 are coming. You can add Ronan O'Connell to that list. I've been told he's coming. Haven't been able to confirm whether William Satterwhite's coming or not. Reached out to him over the weekend, hadn't heard back. Don't think it's official that he's coming yet. I do think he will probably be there. And I don't know if Jamison Riggs. I fully expect Jamison Riggs to be there that weekend too. Those are the guys that I think will be there right now. Clemson's going to take 3, possibly 4. So we'll see if those 3 come out of those guys. I tend to think you'll probably have to expand the board at some point. I really like where Clemson stood with Casey Poe at one point, but I think the Alabama offer he got here recently has changed the complexion of that thing. Michael Inouye, I think he's a guy that Clemson's in good shape for. Not sure about Satterwhite. And Riggs is a guy, he just – there's really no way to know with him. He doesn't really do interviews, doesn't put anything out there. It's hard to get a good read on him. I'll be the one to ask the weekly Sammy Brown question. Any Sammy Brown news? No new Sammy Brown news. We know the 5 official visits he's going to take. Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Ohio State. I got asked this in the mailbag today if I had any vibes on which way he was leaning, and I don't. I know a lot of Clemson fans are very confident they're going to land him. I know a lot of Georgia fans are too. I can see this thing playing out either way. I think there are a lot of things he likes about both schools. I think he likes both the cultures at both schools. And while both have strong cultures, they are very different cultures. But I think he likes both of them. And I'll say what I said in the mailbag today. I know the loaded roster and all the 5 stars at Georgia has been or is thought to be maybe a detriment to Georgia's chances at landing him. I'm not sure I see it that way. That kid, he sees himself as a guy that he sees it as a challenge. He sees it as a challenge to go in there and pass some of those guys by. That's the kind of kid we're talking about. I don't think he's going to be scared off by competition. I think he thrives on it. Yes, he's got a clear path to the playing field earlier at Clemson, but I don't think the roster full of 5 stars will scare him off in any way, shape, or form from Georgia. I think this is one that's just going to come down to which school he thinks he fits best at. Let's face it, Georgia right now is Georgia's defense is kind of looked at right now the way Clemson's was a couple of years ago. That elite level, arguably the best in the country. That's appealing to a lot of kids, especially kids at especially linebackers like Sammy Brown. Do I expect Clemson to author Grunkemeyer if he comes? Sounds like he's already close to deciding already. Garrett Riley went and watched Grunkemeyer throw last week. He's a 3-star out of Ohio. Yeah, he does want to have a decision made by the end of the month. So that means you got to get him on campus quick. I think they are trying to line him up for a visit here in the next week or two. He's got to come to campus to get that offer. That's typically the way those things play out. We'll see if they can get him down here. And I think Penn State's probably in really good shape with him. Don't discount Minnesota. But you can never rule out Clemson. Some kids get down here and they fall in love with the place. We'll see if he's one of those guys. This tends to be, with so little time to work your magic, I don't feel great about Clemson's chances here. Another kid they're getting in on late. Got to take your swing though. I understand why they're doing it. We'll see. I might change them. I might totally change my mind if and when they get him on campus. I know they're trying to work that out with him now. We'll see if that happens. What defensive ends are we in good shape with, and how many will Clemson take? 2. The number is 2. You got Jeremiah Beeman, Edric Houston, Darian Mayo coming in for the June officials. Houston is a 5-star, one of the best players in the country. Saw him at multiple Clemson games last year. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 off the top of my head. But he was at multiple Clemson games last year. If you talk to a lot of the recruiting analysts, they'll tell you he's probably more of an SEC guy. But I think Clemson's in it. How good is shape? I don't know. It's hard to say right now. It's going to be hard to say on a lot of these guys until we get past that weekend, because that's when Clemson's going to make their best pitch. That's when they're going to put their best foot forward, roll out the red carpet, all that good stuff. I think they're in solid shape with Houston. I wouldn't say that about Mayo. I'd say they are in better shape with Beeman than Mayo at this point. But again, all that can change come that weekend. It just depends on what kind of impression that weekend makes on each particular kid. Every player is looking for something different, and Clemson is not for everybody. We already know that. Yeah, Grunkemeyer seems unlikely, which means they go on to plan E or F or no QB this round. I still think Clemson's going to try to take a quarterback in this class. I just don't think it's a dire need. I think you take your big swings and see if you can land a guy like DJ Lagway or Jaden Davis, 2 guys they offered early and missed on. But when you got 2 former 5-stars on the depth chart, quarterbacks want to come in and play now, or most of the highly rated guys want to come in and play year 1, no later than year 2. That's not guaranteed at Clemson right now. But yeah, they would have to, if you miss on this kid, if you even offer him and you miss on this kid, then yeah, it would be plan E. And after they missed on Aaron Nolan, I said at the time, I could see them waiting until after Dabo Swinney's high school camps before they even offered another player. And that might end up being the way it plays out. Those begin on May 31st. Although it's possible that Grunkemeyer gets down here and they offer him. But I do agree that does seem unlikely. It's such a he wants to have a decision made before the official visit weekend. Penn State's been in on him for a little while, but I think Penn State's taking 2 quarterbacks this cycle, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and check that, but I think they're taking 2. So maybe that hurts them a little bit. Minnesota's been on him a little bit longer too. Maybe Garrett Riley can work some magic. I wouldn't call Clemson a favorite by any stretch, but I certainly wouldn't call it. I wouldn't say it isn't worth the effort. But I don't think they are going to decide in May to kick the can to 2025. I think you still need a quarterback. You look at a guy like Hunter Helms, who is second on the depth chart right now, and with Chris Vizina behind him, Helms, after this season, he'll be a guy with his degree. He might want to go look for somewhere he can play, because Vizina is very likely to pass him at some point on the depth chart. Doubt very seriously he's going to be very interested in going back to third. So you need to find somebody. If not, you're probably looking at having to take another portal guy next year. But I don't think Clemson's going to wait till 2025. I think you want to take one in 2024, one in 25, because if you kick the can down to 2025, that means you might have to take 2 next cycle, and I don't think that's ever ideal. When you're taking 2, I think that hurts you, especially when you got 2 former 5-stars already on the roster. And as we sit here today, I think Cade Klubnik is more likely to be a 4-year player than a 3-year player. Anything else? If not, it is getting about my dinner time. I would ask all of y'all, please hit that like, subscribe button, man. We would very much appreciate it. Check us out, allclemsontigers.com, part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform, covering all things Clemson. I appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Tonight's the first night we went YouTube exclusive, no Facebook feed tonight. Appreciate every one of you making that move with me, and I will see y'all again next Monday.